They're alive. They're alive! Welcome to Mike Texts It Out. This is the exciting conclusion to the AirPods Max battery drain issue, and hopefully it is resolved for everybody. So let's begin with last week's video. I know by the time I released it, Apple had released the firmware update the day before. I recorded the video on Monday. The firmware released on Tuesday. I still decided to release the video because I didn't know if the firmware update actually resolved the issue. So that's why I still released the video. I updated the description before it released to let people know, like, hey, I'm aware that the firmware update released, but since I haven't had time to test it, I can't confirm if it works or not. So that's why I still released the video as is. And also the main purpose of that video was just to bring awareness that this issue was going on for 3 months without being resolved, and no one was really talking about it, and Apple hadn't put anything out about it. I know I got a comment last week from, I believe it was John Phillip or John Philippe. I like Philippe better, so I'm going to say Philippe, but it's probably Philip. Basically, he said Apple just came out with the firmware update, problem fixed. For one, like I said, nobody really knew if the problem was fixed. That's what media sites were reporting, that the firmware update might have addressed the issue, but there are actually no patch notes in that firmware update to say if it addressed the issue or not. Because again, Apple's acting like the issue didn't exist unless you contacted their support, and then they would tell you it's a known issue. But I feel like because so few people were having this issue, that they were able to keep it under wraps. But in reality, the problem's not fully resolved because there were two problems I addressed in that video. The main thing was the AirPods Max losing charge. But the second problem was just Apple's overall handling of the situation, which is why I made the video in the first place, because there was really nothing out there from Apple saying, like, this is an issue, we're working on resolving it. Even dealing with support, it was kind of like, there's no estimated time, we can't guarantee you when there will be a fix type of thing. And there was no way for me to know if I wasn't checking, like going out of my way to research and look to see if anything had been released on this issue to even know that it had been fixed, that the firmware update had been released. Like, I had to go out of my way and search for it. So the people with these headphones, if they're not tech savvy, they're not looking for it. I mean, theoretically, as long as you're using like an iPhone or an iPad, they should update by themselves and fix the issue. But still, Apple has just not been transparent about it at all. And that's a huge issue. That's what got them in trouble with the whole battery gate thing. They were throttling people's phones for a good reason. There was a good reason for them to do that. But the lack of transparency ultimately cost them millions of dollars because they ended up losing the lawsuit, and they had to pay customers that were affected by it. So basically, it's the same behavior. And the other thing I like to address is, yes, I'm a smaller channel. I know me making a video, it might not reach a lot of people, but I still feel like it was important for me to say something. Because the bottom line is, everything that's featured on this channel, every product, is stuff that I buy because I want to use. I really don't buy anything that's expensive just to make a video about. If I do, it might be something that's under $20, but I definitely wouldn't buy AirPods Max just to make a video about them and then return them or something like that. Every product that I buy, especially something this expensive, I plan on using in my personal life. So when there's an issue like this, I don't want to brush it under the rug, because apparently this issue started with the December 18th firmware update that they released for the AirPods Max. I got mine on December 20th, and I've been having this issue for almost 3 months. Like, from day one, I almost returned them, and I hung in there because I was hoping Apple would fix the issue, but it's just crappy. Like, it made them unusable. I hadn't been able to really enjoy them as much because half the time I would go to use them and they'd just be dead, and I would just be like, well, I'll just use my AirPods Pro or some other headphones because I can't use them. And that's another thing with the early adopter tax. Everyone talks about it, but it's because of issues like these. Like, if you buy something when it's brand new, it's likely going to have issues. So that's the price of being an early adopter. I understand that, but I've never run into a situation where the product was unusable half the time when you try to use it. This is like the most extreme case of early adopter-itis that I've ever experienced in my life. So understandably, after dealing with this issue for almost 3 months and like having buyer's remorse and then being outside of the return period, and then it just dawned on me last week, I'm like, I'm still having this issue. Like, I went to go use them again and they were dead. Like, as a result, I just started using them less, so I was paying less attention to the issue, which is bad. Like, I want to enjoy these $550 headphones. So I think it finally dawned on me to go ahead and do a video about it, because Apple just kind of left everybody by the wayside. So with all that being said, I am glad that the issue seems to be fixed. If you are still experiencing the issue, you can check what firmware you're running by going to the settings on your iPhone and going to Bluetooth. If you tap on the eye, it'll take you to the settings for the AirPods Max with a little blue eye beside it. If you scroll down to the bottom, it should show you the firmware version. The current firmware should be 3C39. Unfortunately, there's no way to trigger the AirPods to update. You literally have to just connect it to an iPhone or an iPad and wait for it to update itself, and it doesn't give you any kind of notification that it's updated because it all happens automatically. If you are still experiencing the issue after the firmware update, you could try doing the factory reset, which again, you just hold both the crown and the noise canceling button, that's what I'm going to call it. For about 15 seconds, you'll see this flash orange 4 times, the light, and then it'll turn white, and then it'll be like setting up a brand new pair of AirPods Max. If you are not using an iOS device and you are experiencing these issues, then you do have to connect it to an iOS device. Like if you're on Android or if you're on a Windows PC or something and you're having this issue, the only way to update the firmware is with an Apple device. So you do have to connect them to an Apple device and then wait for the firmware to update. And with all that out of the way, let's talk about life after Batterygate. So the last 5 days at this point, that's how long it's been since that firmware update came out, I've really been enjoying the AirPods Max. I've finally been able to really stretch my legs without having to worry about the battery life issues. And I can speak about the battery life now that it seems to be working correctly, and they're okay. You know, my Sony headphones, my WH-1000 XM3s, they had 10 more hours of battery life. These aren't bad. Like, these will still get through the week, no issues, probably like a week and a half to 2 weeks, depending on how long you use them. But yeah, the battery life is okay on them. The sound has really grown on me. Like at first I was like, okay, they're a little bit better than my Sonys, but like listening to just a variety of music and podcasts and videos, you can really hear the difference. That low end just sounds great. Everything is just really crisp. And there is an unfortunate side effect to that. Like if you have some low quality, old like MP3 files in your library, they're gonna sound like garbage. They're gonna sound way worse in these headphones than they do on other headphones, just because they kind of pick up everything. You can hear how compressed it sounds, and it just sounds terrible. I had to reevaluate my library and be like, what am I doing with my life? But yeah, the sound quality is amazing. The other thing that's still weird that I'm still getting used to is the way that they act in wired mode. These are definitely not meant to be wired headphones. They are wireless headphones that give you the option to use them with a wire. So like I mentioned in my review, when you plug them in, you have to adjust the volume separately. Like I usually use them on my Windows desktop. You're gonna have 2 separate volumes that you have to deal with. You have the headphone volumes and then your device volume. And then also when you take them off, it mutes the audio. You can turn that off in iOS, but it also turns it off in wireless mode, like if you go back to use them with your iPhone. So I just leave it as is. And it's not like the biggest deal breaker. It's just a little bit weird. Like if I'm watching a video like on my computer and I take them off and I don't hear the video anymore, but the video is still playing, it's like this disconnect. So that's still weird. That's still taking some getting used to. Not a deal breaker, not even close to being a deal breaker. It's just something to be aware of. I also learned from the battery issue that these do not work wired if they're not charged. Like if they have no charge, they just turn off. So you can't even use them as wired headphones if the battery's dead. The other thing I want to talk about is the comfort. So coming from my Sony, they were comfortable, but like my ears definitely got sweaty. These have been amazing. Like over long stretches of time, they've just been really comfortable. Like yes, there's been other reviews that say these are heavy, and they are, but like I said, they're really well balanced. The ear cushions breathe a lot. Like I can't even explain it. It's amazing. These are definitely like the most comfortable headphones I've personally had. I know the Bose QCs are really comfortable. I haven't really used them for an extended period of time, so I can't speak on those, only from my experience with my Sonys. But these are really comfortable. Like these are amazing. And since this battery issue does seem to be fixed, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody else that was having this issue, I can go ahead and again recommend them, because I know I said in last week's video, like wait until this issue's fixed before you go out and buy them. I would still wait a little bit, maybe just to make sure, you know, that firmware update goes around, because apparently it's rolling out in batches. I got mine before I even noticed. Like as soon as I read the story about the firmware update, I checked it and I already had the update. So I don't know how many people have it at this point, but you know, it's just something to be aware of. But I can wholeheartedly recommend these headphones to the most diehard Apple enthusiast. And the other thing I wanted to clear up, even though I am critical of Apple, I do love their products. That's why I buy them. I just wouldn't buy their stuff. Like I wouldn't use an iPhone and an Apple Watch and have AirPods and spend thousands of dollars on their products if I didn't like them. But I also think that there's things that they can improve on, and I think that it's important to call them out on their bullshit. Well, that's gonna bring this video to a conclusion. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.